Welcome back to the back ranks.
Good evening to you.
Hello, sir.
It's a call from the headquarters.
Yes, sir.
Your leave has been cancelled. Report to your unit immediately.
What happened, sir?
The war is on.
Open fire!
Launch Intercontinental Ballistic
2,
Missile.
1, 3.
This is what will happen if you are a daydreamer, chess player and you're addicted to YouTube. Today I'm going to show you some action-packed tricks and trap in a very famous opening called Tennison Gambit. One among that trap is famous by the name Intercontinental Ballistic Missile. Let's enjoy some fireworks. Welcome to an uncommon gambit called Tennison. The Tennison Gambit is a chess opening in which white gambits a pawn. The first person to significantly research this opening was chess author Otto Mandrup Tennison. The opening moves begin with either Réti Opening, knight f3, d5, e4, or the Scandinavian Defense, e4, d5, knight f3. Black is almost always going to capture the pawn on e4. And white should respond with knight g5. This put black in an interesting position. If black tried to hold on to the pawn advantage, there are many lines where black will forfeit his position or even lead in material. Definitely a playable gambit, especially in short format of the game. Let's look at the first trap in the Tennison Gambit, which is recently became famous by the name Intercontinental Ballistic Missile, the ICBM. Starting off with the Scandinavian Defense, e4, d5, knight f3. Inviting black to take the free pawn with tempo or knight. Who would resist? D into e4, knight g5, attacking the pawn. This is the starting position of the Tennison Gambit. From here, there are 4 ways for black to hold on to the pawn if he wishes to remain a pawn up. Knight f6. This is probably the most natural response. It developed a piece while defending the pawn. d3. White is looking for more activities to gain initiative. E into d3. Black falls into the trap. Bishop g4 is the best response. Q d2, E into d3, bishop into d3, knight c6 is better for black. Coming back to the position where black just played E into d3. Here, bishop captures d3. Black decides to take the pawn in case his e-pawn becomes too hard to defend later in the game. h6, a very inconspicuous looking move that turned out to a blunder. Knight into f7, a fantastic move, forking the queen and rook. King captures f7. Bishop g6 check, sacrificing the bishop. King into g6. Now get ready to shout Intercontinental Ballistic Missile. queen into d8, and white won a queen for 2 pieces. Let me also tell you here what white can go wrong. If black plays e6, don't jump to capture the c8 bishop with queen. Instead, capture c7 pawn. If queen capture the bishop, bishop b4 check will be a discovered attack on the queen by the rook, and you will lose the queen. Now let's look at the second line where black tried to hold on to the pawn. Bishop f5, a different attempt to hold on to the gambited pawn. Here you play knight c3, putting more pressure on the black e4 pawn. Knight f6, queen e2, adding more attacker to the pawn. Queen d4, a very natural looking move. Black is trying to holding on to the material advantage. Turns into a big blunder. Queen b5 check. Bishop d7, blocking the check. Queen captures b7. Bishop c6. Black thinks that this way he can simultaneously defend his rook and kick off the queen. Bishop b5, a wonderful move. The bishop is pinned. Queen d7. Black is trying to hold on to material. Bishop into c6, queen into c6, queen c8 is a beautiful checkmate. And in this position, if knight captures c6, queen into a8 check, knight d8, queen into a7, a clear win for white. In this position, instead of queen d7, knight g4, trying to attack the f2 pawn, then bishop captures c6, knight into c6. If here, king d8, then knight into f7 is a beautiful checkmate. Queen into c6 check. Queen d7. Queen a8. Queen d8. Queen into d8. King into d8. Knight into f7. Forking the king and rook. White will win very easily. Let's examine another line. e4, d5, knight f3, d into e4, knight g5. In this position, if black plays queen d5, as per standard Scandinavian theory, this is another natural move as it also attack your knight. d3, continuing with the same move as in the ICBM line. e into d3, bishop into d3, taking with the bishop and inviting black to take the juicy hanging g2 pawn. If black falls into the trap and captures g2 with the queen, bishop e4, queen g4, black's only move, and he's just lost after the queen tried. Queen to g4, bishop into g4, bishop captures b7, the rook will fall. Black will lose more material. Coming back to the position where white just played bishop into e3. In this position, instead of capturing the g2 pawn, if black plays queen e5, check, bishop e3, blocking the check and also inviting black to take your b2 pawn this time. If queen captures b2, knight d2, knight d6, castles, knight f6. Simple development here will not be good for black. All of the sudden you will realize that the black queen is trapped. Knight c4, queen b4, one of the safe squares, c3, queen into c3, rook c1, queen b4, a3, queen b5. Queen is running in short of squares. Knight d6, check. Finally, the queen is trapped. Or in this position, if black moves his queen to c3, rook b1, knight a5, bishop d2, attacking the queen is trapped. Let's check one more line where black tries to hold on to the pawn. In this position, if black plays f5, black defends with the so-called forget about pawn, bishop c4, knight h6. In this position, e6 sacrificing a pawn here is the best move for black, but leads to a nice attack for white. Knight into e6, bishop into e6, bishop into e6, queen f6, bishop c8. Now white win another pawn. Knight c6, bishop into b7, rook b8, bishop into c6, check, queen into c6. White isn't developed at all, but he is still up a pawn and with an exposed enemy king. Coming back to the position, After knight h6, d3, e into d3, c into d3 here. e5, queen b3, setting up a queen and bishop battery and also eyeing the b7 pawn. If queen e7, knight c3, c6, attempting to keep the checking diagonal closed and preparing a later kick away the bishop. White castles. Knight d7. Note that immediate b5 doesn't work here. If black play b5 immediately here, knight into b5, c into b5, bishop d5, bishop b7, queen into b5 check and black loses a piece. Rook e1, knight c5. If instead of knight c5, black decided to play knight f6, bishop f4 is a very good move. Queen c2, b5, d4, attacking the knight and also targeting the pawn. e4, black tried to keep the center closed. d into c5, b into c4, knight into e4, white is better here. I hope you enjoyed the video. Try out this opening especially against the lower rated players and in the short format of the game. You will find many people falling into this trap. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be coming with more instructional videos in coming days. Stay tuned, stay blessed.